All right. Good morning and welcome to the Future First event today. And we are going to start this panel discussion, and we are having distinguished panel from the fintech, finance, traditional, and investment industry. So this is Mahrukh. I am founder of Outset, and I am providing product consultancy to early stage startups. We are going to start, and I would like to ask our distinguished panelists to introduce themselves, and we are going to start from Nida.
Hello, everyone. Welcome you all on this exciting and a thrilling discussion that we will be having. This is Nida Wasif. I'm currently working with an oil marketing company looking after the partnerships and alliances function for the newly found digital payment solution which operates in a closed loop system. The name of the product is Infini, and based on my experience of developing that product ground up and scaling it into the market, I will be sharing my experience with you all. Thank you so much. I hand it over to our next panelist.
Our next panelist is Hunain Shahid, and he is head of strategy and 3PL services at TazahTechnologies.
Hello everyone, great to see you guys here. Quick introduction. I have a management consulting and VC background, primarily in UAE. I've been based there for the past 4 years. And won't take much of your time. We'll focus on fintech, but just I'm happy to be here because a lot of my professional experience has revolved essentially around fintech, especially when I was in management consulting. So glad to give you guys some insights.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Khurram Agha. I have been involved with the payment industry for over 25 years now. Worked in banks. Finally came more on the branchless banking side. Now finally looking after Forerepay, which is a payment service organization. We work in a very bank neutral perspective, aggregate payment services. I'm heading that out. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Saniya. I am more of a marketer than a fintech person, so I'm really honored to be a part of this esteemed panel. I worked with multiple fintech brands like Wise, which is a money transfer service, and also worked with many Web2 as well as Web3 startups around the world, helping them out with organic and paid advertising. On the side, I have a project called Investing at 25, which basically helps people like me and a lot of you in the crowd to learn how to budget, how to save, how to invest, and use the products that all of these guys build as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your kind introduction. So we are going to start with the questions, but before that, I would like to say that please have your questions ready in your mind. So at the end of the panel talk, we will give like 5 to 10 minutes of opportunity for you to have a discussion and the questions from the panelists. So before even asking the question, I would like to set the stage that today we are going to discuss about the future of fintech and how the industry is changing from traditional financial transaction and everything into the digital space, and what is like the intersection of finance and the technologies happening in this ecosystem. All right, so we can start with our first question. So, Nida, this is for you. So, what do you consider to be the primary challenges and risks associated with the rapid growth of this fintech?
Okay, so Pakistan, just before the start of this session, we were having a very thriving and a very deep discussion with our panelists backstage. And we do agree to the fact that Pakistan remains a cash-dominant industry, and primarily for a very longer period of time, it would continue to be that mainly because although the technology is evolving, the banks are also coming into the digital domain, and there are a lot of fintech companies which are coming into the play. However, people what I have experienced from my product development journey, and then commercially launching it into the market, people still have this little hesitation and a factor of trust when they are using technology for transfer of payments from one point to another. So in the oil marketing sector, it is revolutionizing in such a way that instead of using cash, and it mostly came as a result of post-pandemic situation, where instead of having your payments done through cash, people are, on the hindsight, they have this hygiene factor in them. So they've started using different means of digital solutions to make payments, which first comes into the form of bank cards. And then in the oil marketing sectors, the companies are coming up with their own solution to ensure and to entail that the money remains dominant, money remains circulated within their own ecosystem. The other challenge which we have come across is the security concerns which comes with the use of technology. So when payments are taking place, it's live financial transactions which is happening in the ecosystem, and people have hesitation when it comes to being very sure that the payment that they are making to another person is actually going into their wallet. So these are two of the things. One is the digital awareness, and the other is the security reason which dominates the market in terms of people having the confidence to make digital solution. Nevertheless, all the fintech companies that are coming into the market of Pakistan and also globally, they are also very aggressively working and religiously as well to ensure that the product is well aware into the mind of the people.
Thank you, Nida. I think all of you can chime in if you want in any question. So the other question is almost interlinked, so you can build on top of that. So what are the trends do you foresee for the future of digital payments, and how it's going to impact the traditional financial space?
Just in an extension of the answered earlier. So the challenges that, talking about the MENA region, or maybe lesser so in the US, is the regulatory challenges that fintechs face. So I faced when I was working at a VC, that most of the fintech companies that used to come to us for funding, they did not have those regulatory approvals already in place. So that checkbox, if not ticked, a lot of VCs are going to, step back, or they're going to do a soft commitment and only materialize when, they actually get that regulatory approval. So in Dubai, for example, that's DIFC, and other regulators. In Pakistan, State Bank, a lot of licenses to these fintech banking companies or neobanks are given by State Bank or other regulators. So that is, I think, a key challenge. So get those regulations done first for fintechs, and that is going to remain a challenge because payments and transactions is a tricky space. The government or the regulator wants to control that space. Now coming to that digital space, digital payments, and in the international landscape that you asked, it's definitely going to grow. And I always say there are two reasons for that. One is that Gen Z is coming up, more penetration in mobile phone users. The second reason is that slightly the regulators are understanding how the fintechs operate, so more regulatory licenses are being issued, so more fintechs will emerge. Thirdly, there's a lot of funding for the fintech players still out there. If you go back to last 2 years or 3 years, fintech has to be the top 3 areas where the funding was channelized. So I think the payment landscape is definitely going to grow, and one of the key reasons is banking as a service. So a lot of banks have realized we can't work in silos, we need to work in collaboration with these fintech platforms. So that collaboration is going to increase that digital payments landscape.
Awesome. I think I would like to ask Khurram the same question, the challenges and how it's going to impact the traditional.
So I'll address this more from a consumer perspective. The fact and the reality today is that a cash transaction takes less than 5 seconds. So you need to break that barrier, and how do you bring simplicity into the digital transactions? So if you see, as an example, credit cards have gone from swipe to tap and pay. So it makes it a little faster. So digital payments also, you need to have the right product market fit behind it, that it actually solves the problem and how quickly can it be executed securely. How can I bring unification into that versus having to flip through bank A, bank B, bank C? How can you orchestrate it into a layer? So I'll use and I love to give examples of real life examples. If you walk into an Apple store, there is no till. Every cashier is the salesperson and the product is brought to you. Yeah, right, it might not work at a grocery store, but certainly it can work at a shoe store. But if you look at how our retail setup is done, across the board, there's a till, there's a POS machine, and either you're giving cash, you're using the POS, but you have to make the journey and that experiences, you have to go to a teller at the end. Whereas globally that is changing. Now, how can you convert that salesperson to be that merchant and the product is brought to you? So how do you make the transaction experience a part of your larger customer experience versus being an isolated incident at the end? So it drives down to how do you drive in that simplicity? When you have an Android or an Apple phone, I look at it as real estate. Every app is occupying space. People will undelete your app or delete your app if they're not utilizing it, let's say, more than once in a day or twice. So how do you get that user engagement in? How do you get that behavior change in? So it's a very complex structure. There's a lot of behaviors that we need to undo and work towards. But I think the key behind all of this is having the right product market fit for the right target customer and adding that simplicity into it.
I totally agree with you. So fintech is not only changing the two industries like finance and inclusion of the technology into it, but it is also tapping multiple more industries. And yes, user experience is more important. And whenever you are coming up with a fintech startup or any idea, you have to make sure that there is a need to it. You are solving an actual problem which was happening or encountered by the people who were using the cash, and you are trying to convert them into the digital space because that is the need of the hour. So with that,
sorry, yeah, I can add one more point. I think I can add the perspective from the international money transfers. A consumer, I send money abroad as well, and also from abroad to Pakistan, and have worked with brands as well who've done amazing work in that field. I think if we go back to the time where initial money transfers used to happen internationally, we used to use transfers, even now services like SWIFT, which takes a lot of days, which takes a lot of price. So it's a costly service that takes a lot of time, right? And then we had Amazon, we then had PayPal, we then had other platforms that came through, each of them turning into a phase which made it more simpler coming to the next generation, right? So it started, now we have Revolut, we have Wise, we have Monzo, we have all of these companies doing the exact same thing in the same field, but each time a new player came in the market, trying to make it simpler than the one before them. So I think the journey and of innovation is to just make it as simple as it can get, and I think that's the best innovation that we can get, as exactly like you were saying earlier, sir. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Totally agree with that. So yes, we know that we are having the traditional banks, and then there is a lot of fintech startups which are emerging on daily basis or on a monthly basis, right? So where do you, all of you panelists, think that there should be any mutual or collaboration work happening, or one supporting the other? And if yes, how? How do you think it?
See, I'll take that one.
Sure.
I'll answer that from three perspectives. Collaboration is key because everybody has a limited amount of funds. If everybody's going to go spend the same amount of money for the same tech stack, so I'll give this with a real life example. If you walk into the mall, there's 7 ATMs over there. Do you actually need 7 ATMs? Or do you actually need 2 ATMs over there and increase the coverage by taking those 5 somewhere else? So if you have the collaboration that gives you that ability to spend the money, collaborations can happen through areas of specializations. Collaborations obviously increases the reach, takes you away from things like price wars. You can concentrate more towards your product. You can bring in specializations through collaborations as well. So in my perspective, open platforms, banking as a service, collaborations is the only way to go.
I totally agree with that. So Nida, you should also add, because you have worked with the banks as well, and you know, like, and also tell us how open the banks are, traditional banks are, towards the collaboration.
So I believe that fintech organizations, when they're developing a product, when they're marketing a product, they definitely should take into account the traditional banking system, and they need to partner with the bank for multiple reasons, starting with banks have their own hierarchy and their own way of working. But one thing should not be ignored, that banks have a pool of information and pool of knowledge and pool of experience at the back end. Fintech organizations have the benefit of making a product, making a market-fit product at a faster pace, which otherwise large organizations, complex organizations have a set of processes, procedures, and SOPs that we call. So it basically, but through collaboration, the two set of organizations come together to prepare a product which is suitable for a market, bringing together the expertise of the two different domains. Banks, what I have experienced is they take a lot of time in doing a research and then taking approvals and then budgeting and all these things. Fintech organizations, on the other hand, can do the same thing at a faster pace. So the element of time to market is what they can leverage, but at the same time collaborating with the bank, partnering with the bank, taking their expertise to, like our panelists mentioned, that there is a regulatory element which sometimes is missing. So that is where the fintech companies can leverage with the partnering to the traditional banks.
Thank you so much. Vardak, would you like to add?
Yeah, I think I'm going to add the marketing perspective here, because I think collaboration at the end of the day is brands building a community for themselves, right? And that community is your users, is your target audience at the end of the day. Whether you are a banking institution or a fintech startup, at the end of the day, they need to collaborate to get the ecosystem moving forward, because at the end user for them both is the same, right? So I think to get that message across, again, simplicity, I'm going to come back again and again, as simply as possible. It is important that the traditional meets the innovation and they deliver the message as simply as possible to the target audience in a communal way. Yeah, you can go on.
Also, a quick note on this. So a real example is when I was working in management consulting in the UAE, there was this company who wanted to do robo-advisory services, right? So they went to a service provider, they asked for a quotation, they got for $60,000 to create the algorithm, to create the backend infrastructure to robo-advisory so that they can create risk baskets for different stock portfolios. We advised them to talk to several banks in the US who already had that algorithm prepared. So they did that and they saved those $60,000. They came into a revenue sharing model. So two things happened. They saved a lot of money and then the time to market was much faster. So without collaborations, I don't think this is even possible to, in the startup world, to grow and scale at a pace in silos or in isolation.
Very nice. So now we know that we have to solve the problems collaboratively in fintech space, but now question is, are we solving the problems of the same segment, or are we also taking some initiatives for the underserved digital market? So what do you say about it?
I think I'll take the start. So the banking population, so Pakistan is a nation of 230 million people. And the banking population, people, by banking population I mean people who already have a bank account or have some kind of services taking place from the banking as service. So that is approximately 10 to 13% of the entire population set. So these organizations like the fintech, which are emerging and being very successful in the country, are actually working for the unbanked population. Banking has its own way for you to have your bank account. However, through simplifier means of being able to access an account, a digital wallet in other words, for somebody who is a college-going student through biometric means, biometric verification, these fintech organizations are enabling that environment where the larger audience, larger population is able to manage their finances through secure means. And we have very successful stories here in the country. Two leading fintech organizations who have actually achieved this target of reaching out to the unbanked population. They're also digitally inclusive and they're inclusive in terms of the gender as well. So not to sound biased, but then we have a lot of female population who do not tend to have a bank account for whatsoever the reason. But through these digital wallets and similar other products available in the market, they are actually able to do that. Moreover, it's also enabling the freelancing community to have access to those elements of managing their finances, obtaining their financial aspects, for example, payments, through those means of fintech solutions.
Very nice. So we have covered that too. Yeah.
I would like to add a couple of things to that. Again, with an example. So supplementing what you're saying, why do I carry cash in my wallet? Because I know I can use it. So if I need to have the underserved coming more towards account opening and opening our wallets or having that money digitally, they need to have a place to use it as well. Otherwise, what am I going to do for it? Only one purpose, saving? What else is there? And whenever I need to use cash, because that's predominant, I go to an ATM and draw it out. So what we need to bring back is how do we bake in the micropayments that need to come in? How do you develop use cases around that? Bring the simplicity into it? And without the ecosystem supporting you, it can't exist. So it's a culmination of all three questions that you asked is the answer. You need to have an ecosystem, you need to have collaboration, you need to have simplicity, and you need to have the right product market fit.
I totally agree with that. So again, underserved, we have discussed that females and the students, and how about there are multiple other, for example, who are blue collar, or the people who are sitting in multiple markets where there are less literacy about the financial management and everything. So what about those initiatives? Is anybody taking initiative on those for those segments, or do we need to that?
So a lot of these benefits that come from these fintech apps or platforms is actually for the underserved. So, I mean, not many of us sitting in this auditorium would pay 30, 40 rupees for a transaction, right? Because we know what the rates are when you use our banking apps. But if you go to somebody who is a blue collar worker who is spending his 8 hours, working somewhere, and if he has to go to a bank, to a branch and spend 2 hours to make a transaction, right? So that is the opportunity cost that he's lost working 2 hours. He could have earned more money. So for him, doing all that physical hassle means that he can transfer or maybe, pay that 30, 40 rupees. So basically he pays and the fintech also wins. It's not only that he is getting that advantage, because if you see Easy Paisa or Jazz Cash, a lot of these customers are basically, below a certain level of income. So that is how they create a win-win situation. And even internationally, a lot of apps are being developed for the gig economy, where they not only enable transactions for the freelancers or the blue-collar workers, but also they track expenses and advise and guide them. It's also an educational thing for them. So I think for them, they're the biggest winners, the underbanked.
I'll add more to it very quickly. That while I was, since I am looking after the scalability of a fintech product within an oil marketing company, one of the biggest challenges that we were facing for our B2B customers was that our B2B customers include organizations who have a large fleet to their services, because they have a lot of cargoes to be transported all across the nation. So how did our fintech product came into their use was that instead of giving cash to their drivers, which was prone to theft, which was prone to being stolen, which was prone to snatching, the fintech solution basically helps greatly in safeguarding the finances of a certain group of people. We must take into consideration our environment, which is prone to street crimes. So having digital currency, having your money saved up in a digital means actually saves you a lot of hassle, making it very simple for anybody to manage their finances in a safe and a secure environment.
Awesome. Vardak have something to add?
Yeah, I think from my side, the main idea is that financial literacy is a topic that has been overlooked, is how I feel. And I think most of the panelists would also agree with that. And that is something not just in Pakistan, but globally, right? Because if I look at global awareness, when people, let's say, turn 18, they're forced to leave their houses, forced to get a job. Pakistan mein wo culture nahi hai is waqt, right? More often than not, people, once they graduate, or also when they're studying, the side business that they have mostly is freelancing or now drop shipping or learning things online and having an income, right? But the thing is that once we do have an income, we don't really understand what to do with that money, because we're not taught that. In our households, that topic is not a norm. We're not taught financial literacy at home. We're not taught financial literacy in our schools, in our colleges. If I am studying marketing, I will have 0 courses related to money management or even life skills, to be honest, right? So once I'm in the market and I have the money that I have been chasing for the last 16 years, that once I graduate, I'll make my income, I don't know how to manage it, right? But then we have these dreams because we're taught by the media, which is everywhere on our feed, social media, we have this thing that overnight success. What does that mean? That we'll turn into millionaires the next morning probably. But you have no idea how are we going to manage that million, how are we going to manage the next $100 that we get. So I feel like financial literacy is something that needs to be taught at a grassroots level, whether it's in the urban areas or in the rural areas. It needs to be a part of the curriculum. It needs to be a part of the ecosystem that we're in, because these are the kids that then go on to make all these fintech, be a part of the fintech players, and then even grow it further, right? So I think it's a win-win situation for both, I would say, to continue on that.
So I'll segue into another segment into that, because you're absolutely correct on the financial literacy, but we also need to have literacy on how to safeguard your money.
Correct.
Because as digital proliferation is going up, so are social frauds, scams, and even supposedly financial literate people fall trap to them. So the segue has to be that the financial literacy is there, and then you also get into how do you safeguard that money? How do you utilize it, and how do you safeguard yourself from all of these social and different scams that are happening?
I totally agree with both of you, and I would like to add that it's not that only underserved and the people who don't know about the money and the apps and the things need to understand, but also the literate people, so urban area as well. If I'm not a finance degree graduate, I still need to learn how to manage, how to invest, how to take money, where to use and all. And again, if we are talking about the underserved, we are also supposed to educate people who are not even normal graduate, right? For example, our house maids and people. So rather than giving them cash, we can also teach them how to use this and that app, so they can also save their amount. And then there will be also a literacy which we are going to yeah, sure, add.
Absolutely.
I love that idea, actually, to be honest, because I think household income is, not just my household, but everybody who's involved in my household, not just my family, but people who are helping my family as well are a part of it, right? But another thing that I do want to add to that is when you talked about, financial literacy, like how to invest, where to invest, I feel like in Pakistan, we have this notion that investment only is going to have returns when we go into real estate, right? That's the basic invest, and everybody's taught at home as well. But it has a really high barrier of entry, right? So when we're talking about real estate investment, you need a certain chunk of amount to get into that, at least in Pakistan. So I think that user behavior also needs to shift, which is something that we were talking about earlier, that there are other platforms that teach you how to get into fractional stock investment. Abhi crypto is, a thing, it's trending right now, but when it dips, everybody starts running away from it. But these are the ecosystems that we all need to be a part of and learn more about, right? It's not a money-making mechanism, quick rich, quick wins, but actually learn yourself and also teach to others as well. So I think that's what I would fully suggest as well, yeah.
Totally agree. So now we can move towards a little bit understanding about the international market, right? So Hunain, you are having international exposure and everything, so this is for you. So what strategies should fintech companies in Pakistan adopt to succeed in the diverse international market?
Okay, so how Pakistani fintechs should...
Or global.
So basically, see, international markets are ahead of us. So most of the fintechs that start in Pakistan are, I don't want to use the word, but a mixture or replica of whatever is happening, because it's tried and tested, and they try to initiate something. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But I know a couple of Pakistani startups who have gone into the Middle East region. A lot of other startups from other than fintech are also going outside Pakistan. And I think the reason is dollar-denominated income, more stable political situations and economic situations, right? So I think in that scenario, yes, Pakistani startups should explore international markets. But see, the fundamental idea behind a lot of fintechs is to serve the underbanked, as we've already discussed, and Pakistan has a huge underbanked base. So we can't ignore the fact, huge population, mobile penetration, ability to understand and make transactions using mobile phones. So Pakistan still is a huge market, but depending on the business model, sometimes yes, some startups do need to explore other markets because they are more stable regulatory environments. In Pakistan, a license can get revoked, for some not going by the rules, but otherwise in UAE, for example, if I worked over there, I can see that if you have a regulatory license, you can be fined, but the license cannot be taken back. So a lot of these stability, encourages a lot of fintechs from Pakistan to explore other regions, and MENA is a very easy target.
Would you like to add more?
See, again, I like to look at it from a different lens as well, because one perspective has been put in. So, if we look at our population size, and if we look at what is the opportunity in the market, and everybody talks about it's a great opportunity, but we're still waiting for our first unicorn. Are we hitting the right notes? Are we getting the right penetration across? Because if I take an example, what you were talking about adoption, 60 million users use WhatsApp right now, and they don't go to any helpline, they don't have any manuals, they know how to use it. So age-old consideration for myself is financial literacy, understanding all of this, getting the right notes, has to come through simplification. Our market right now and what the need of the country is, we want investments to come in. So let's target, we've got a huge opportunity over here. But do we have the right notes that we're hitting to capitalize on it? So I think there's a great opportunity within Pakistan only. So before you start looking at exploring outside, get it right over here. Get your act together, understand how a platform works, how an ecosystem works, then step in with countries which are far ahead of you right now. Because otherwise, you might get lost in the race as well. So let's get it right over here first.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, right? Before jumping into the international market, we have to fix our acts and the practice and everything. We have to validate everything that whatever we are doing is actually accurate, and then we go there and compete with them. Along with these notes, we have to wrap it up. Our discussion, I have gained a lot of insights from all of you. Thank you so much for being here and being the charm of this event. And thank you everyone for joining, for listening to us. And I hope you all have gathered some notes on how to penetrate into the fintech market and start your ideas and everything. And with that, we are going to conclude it. Thank you so much, panelists, and thank you all of you.